Hello and welcome to God's Minute. I'm Pastor Jonathan Conrad, the senior pastor at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Wilmington, North Carolina. Today we continue our look at 1 Timothy with a passage that makes me think of apples. So let's get to it. A wife should learn quietly with complete submission. I don't allow a wife to teach or to control her husband. Instead, she should be a quiet listener. Adam was formed first and then Eve. Adam wasn't deceived, but rather his wife became the one who stepped over the line because she was completely deceived. But a wife will be brought safely through childbirth if they both continue in faith, love, and holiness together with self-control. So in this passage, the writer Paul refers to Adam and Eve and how poor Adam was fooled by Eve into taking a bite of the forbidden apple. Now, the reason I use quotations around Paul is to remind you that researchers and theologians believe this letter was not written by the actual Apostle Paul, but rather one of his disciples. Now, let me show you that chart again so that you know what letters are considered undisputed and disputed. You see 1 Timothy over on the right, which would explain why Paul is so down on women, because the Paul that we hear and read about in Acts and in the undisputed letters does not feel this way about women. Paul actually acknowledges the women who provided homes for worship and the women who are leaders in their churches. So this is not the same guy. Perhaps, as some would argue, this Paul is trying to respect the culture that Timothy is preaching in, where it appears that women did not have a major voice in, well, anything. And I will grant you that explanation. But sadly, this is the passage that so many men and some women use to keep women from being ministers, pastors, and keeping them from any type of role in the church. And to me, that is wrong. It is completely wrong. Let me give you three quick reasons. Number one is I've already mentioned that this letter was not written by the Apostle Paul. Second, this Paul never quotes Jesus Christ when defending his thoughts, which is interesting since earlier in this chapter, Paul writes that God rescued all of us. And yet it sounds like the women, especially Eve, are now given an extra helping of guilt. And number three, when I look at the story of Adam and Eve, I have one thought. Adam could have said no. He could have said no to the temptation, but he didn't. He ate the apple, and then he even tried to throw Eve under the bus when confronted by God. So at the moment that the apple was eaten, sin became a level playing ground. There was no one to blame. There were just two people who sinned. So my hope is that we can look and think about passages like these with an open mind and heart, because I know the role and the difference that women, especially women pastors, have had in my life. And if it were up to Paul, that difference, those wonderful people would never have led me to the faith that I have today. So when it comes to women and ministry, I don't look to Paul. I look to God. And I listened to Jesus, who said to Mary on Easter morning, "Go and tell." Go and tell the story, which sounds an awful lot like a pastor to me. That will do it for me today. Thank you for listening. I will see you tomorrow for another edition of God's Minute. You take care and God bless.